You run cargo build, release on your Rust Axum backend, and cargo doesn't hand you a folder full of files. It hands you exactly one thing, a single binary. That one file contains the machine code, the Tokio async runtime, the Axum framework, and every dependency you compiled against, all statically linked together. Typical size, 10 to 35 megabytes. The simplest way to run it is the most direct one. Copy that binary onto a server and execute it. No installer, no runtime to set up first. Managed with systemd, this is a natural fit for a plain VPS like an EC2 instance, a DigitalOcean droplet, or a Hetzner box. But modern cloud platforms, Kubernetes, AWS ECS, FLY.io, Google Cloud Run, don't run bare binaries. They run containers. So even though your Axum app has zero runtime dependencies, you still package it into Docker. Because Rust doesn't need a heavy base OS image, you have two lightweight options. A distroless or Alpine base bundles just the C library and SSL certificates alongside your binary, typically 15 to 40 megabytes. Or compile against musl for full static linking, and copy the binary into a completely empty scratch image, under 15 megabytes. The standard pattern is a multi-stage Docker file. One stage compiles the binary using the full Rust toolchain. A second, much smaller stage copies just that binary into a minimal runtime image and sets it as the entry point. The binary is the core, but your deploy bundle usually needs a couple of companions. Environment variables for things like your database URL and API secrets are required, while static assets and TLS certificates are optional, depending on what your app does. The payoff for all of this: your app starts in milliseconds, often runs under 30 megabytes of RAM at idle, and what compiles on your machine runs identically on the cloud host. No version drift, no surprises. Here's a question that trips people up. If the build output is just a binary, do you still need Docker to deploy it on AWS ECS? Yes, because ECS is a container orchestrator, not a binary runner. It manages deployments through task definitions that tell it which container image to pull, and it delegates actual execution to the Docker engine. Without an image, ECS has nothing to pull. A Docker image also gives ECS a standardized file system format to work with, plus the Linux groups and namespaces it needs to isolate your process with strict limits on memory, CPU, and networking. The good news: because Rust needs no language runtime installed, that ECS-bound image can still be tiny. A scratch base with just your statically linked binary and a copy of the CA certificates comes in under 15 megabytes. Put it all together and the pipeline looks like this. Cargo compiles your Axum app into a binary. Docker builds a micro-image around it. That image gets pushed to AWS ECR, and ECS pulls it from there to run on EC2 or Fargate. But zoom out further. For a typical SaaS backend, is ECS plus ECR actually your best option, or does Rust's lightweight footprint open up cheaper paths that heavier languages can't use as easily? Option A is ECS on Fargate, the production standard. You get full control over networking, native WebSocket support, and zero cold starts. But an always-on load balancer plus a minimal task costs roughly $35 to $50 a month before you serve any real traffic. Option B is AWS Lambda. Serverless functions are usually notorious for slow cold starts, but a compiled Axum binary on Lambda initializes in 15 to 50 milliseconds, fast enough that you genuinely won't notice it. Baseline cost: $0 a month if nobody's using your app. Option C is AWS Lightsail, a fixed-price VPS starting around $3.50 to $7 a month, static IP and bandwidth included. Scaling is manual, but for a solo developer shipping an MVP, it's the least complicated way to get something live. Laid side by side, the trade-off is clear. Lambda wins on cost and simplicity for a new project. Lightsail wins on pure simplicity for a solo dev. And ECS plus Fargate wins on control once you need WebSockets or you're carrying steady, predictable traffic. If you're launching a new SaaS, start with Lambda. It costs nothing while idle, and Rust makes the cold start a non-issue. Once you need WebSockets, background workers, or you've got steady revenue, Migrate to ECS plus Fargate for the long-term stability. A Rust Axum app compiles down to one small, dependency-free binary, and that's exactly what gives you the freedom to pick your deployment based on your traffic and your budget, not on what your language forces you into.